Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 46, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today, John and I are talking about our trip to ATA and our favorite pieces of new gear displayed at the show, so stay tuned. All right, whitetail friends, what is up? You're listening to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I believe this is episode number 46. Today, John and I are giving you a little bonus podcast. John, we're feeling generous today, right?
That's right. Just breaking off a little something extra.
A little something extra for the friends. A little bonus podcast coming to you, a recap of the ATA show. But before we jump into that, let's take a moment to talk about our sponsors. We are brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you ever use. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. And of course, you guys can head over to wickedtreegear.com and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and get a 20% discount on your Wicked Tree Gear purchases. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. You guys have heard me talk about these guys. Life's a passion, pursue it. They have kick-ass cameras, and you can also now get a cheaper price point camera coming in at $150, the new Exodus Trek. You can pre-order those now at ExodusOutdoorGear.com, and you can use the promo code TRUTH to save yourself $20 on any Exodus purchase on their site. We're also brought to you by Tecumani Seed. Everything's bigger in Texas. Can I get a hell yeah, Johnny?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. No matter if you're from the South, Midwest, the North, the East Coast, it doesn't matter where you're from, Tecumani has your food plot needs covered. Visit them at tecumani.com and check out their product selector tool to help pick the right seed for you. Use promo code TRUTH at checkout and save 20%. And last but not least, Glacier Coolers, and we're definitely going to talk about this during our ATA wrap-up. Simply put, the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com. Promo code TRUTH. Save yourself some cash. So as I said in the upfront here, Johnny and I are going to be talking about the ATA show. We spent a couple days grinding through Indianapolis with I think we had some pretty good weather, wouldn't you say, John? It was nice and balmy, sunny. There was no ice or snow to be found.
Yeah, exactly. First day was that way, and then it got nasty.
Yeah, it wasn't. The weather was bad. Let's put it that way. I think there was some definite fear on my part of whether or not I was actually going to get out of there on time and be able to make it back to the eastern part of PA. But we made it home safe and sound. But I'm interested, man, because I have a perspective as a first timer, so I was super stoked to go. I was at the Wicked booth, or the Tecumani booth with Wicked Tree Gear, Tecumani Seed, and Glacier Coolers, and spent a lot of my time there. But got a chance to kind of walk around the show and just kind of take in the sights, the sounds, the different products that were out and stuff like that. And I thought, I'll give my perspective, I guess, as a first time person who's going, or who had been there, for anyone, because I got a lot of questions. Whenever you go to ATA, like a lot of folks would like to go, and they're always kind of curious what kind of goes on there. I will say, for anyone who hasn't gone, it is badass. If you're a hardcore archery hunter, diehard bow hunter, it's definitely something you should take in at least once. Whether you're interested in the products or not, I think is kind of beside the point as a consumer necessarily. But it is super cool just to kind of see everyone bring out their new stuff, that for, in that particular space and for that period of time. You see all the new stuff that's hitting the market. You get to try it out. You can walk up and talk to whether it's sales reps or marketing guys or whatever it is, and kind of get the dirt on the behind the scenes stuff that you don't get at the store, like a lot of the specs and how they developed it and the real backstory of these products, which is really cool. But for me, especially hanging out with you, John, like the thing that I really was able to kind of take in that I thought was super cool was just like, we see and hear on social media all the time, like there's this this divide of hunters and this, that, the other, and social media can kind of be a nasty place sometimes. And when you go to one of these shows, man, like I did not hear one person say one thing that was negative to another hunter the entire time that I was there. And we're talking about guys who hunt everything from like whitetail hunters, like me, who traditionally hunt whitetail or get a chance to go west, like you and I, John, or like your buddy Steve, who, completed the Ram Slam, that does that style of hunting a lot. Like, there was no disparaging comments between hunting styles, the game people were hunting. There was nothing but just like hunter love for 3 days, man. Like, that was my big takeaway. I don't know, how you felt about the 3 or 4 days there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, a couple years ago, the ATA show was getting really bad. And when I say this, like, let me complete, my thought, before anybody passes judgment on it. The show was getting to where it was bombarded. Like, anybody could go. Now, it's not supposed to be open to the public per se, but it was really easy to get a ticket. If you were the buddy's cousin, next door neighbor, once removed from an archery shop owner, you could get a ticket and you could go. So what happened was, it's a manufacturer show. And like you said, manufacturers are bringing their products for display. They're all their new stuff. The 2K18 stuff, was on display, and everybody's trying to meet with the dealers and other manufacturers and marketing partners and things like that as to what new products they've got going forward. It's a big unveil. Well, what was happening was you were getting a lot of guys that were coming, guys and girls, and passing out their media kits and stuff, wanting to get promoted and wanting to get pro staff. And I think that's a very hot topic. Everybody's pro staff this, pro staff that. What's the truth and what's not real. And so the ATA show started really restricting the tickets, and they've done an excellent job. I mean, the numbers have been down as far as attendees, but what it did was they started policing who was able to go, and so it is a harder show to get into. But for example, we spent $25,000 between our booth and hotels and food and travel just to get there, to be there at the show. I mean, it's a lot of money, and we're there to conduct business. I mean, it's the future of our company depends on meeting these dealers and making those connections to making sure that our products can sell in the stores, and then they can make money off of it, and hunters can benefit from our stuff. So that was the biggest thing that I noticed right off the bat of the show, was that there was a lot more dealers, and there wasn't and let's be honest, the hunters are the people who are buying our stuff. Right. And I want I want hunters to see any product that's out there that they possibly can, and I love talking to them. The media kits, it's necessary. We want to work with other hunting shows and web shows and podcasts and media buys and stuff like that. I mean, that's all a part of marketing, and that's what we're there to do, and we want to do that. But there's a time and a place for it. You know what I mean? Right. Shoot me an email with the media kit, and I can review it, not while, we just shelled out $25,000 to try to sell some products and stuff like that. So they've done a great job with that, and I talked to a lot of the other manufacturers, and they've been very pleased. That's that 3-day window that you can really reach your dealers, and then the rest of the year is when you've got to dedicate to your the consumer, so to speak. But right. You're spot on as far as the hunting community. On social media, there's a lot of backlash. Oh, well, that guy took a staged photo, and that guy's not a really good hunter and stuff. But when you're at that show, it seems like everybody kind of takes their ego down a notch, and everybody kind of you can see it on everybody's face. They know that everybody that's underneath that roof likes to hunt with archery equipment, and it's like a common ground community, and everybody respects each other.
Right. Yeah, no, I 100% agree, man, because it was, like you said, it's everybody is there, and like all the notable names that you would think about that you would consider like big names in the archery industry are there, and whether it's the Waddells of the world or the Kip Campbells or whomever, and any of those guys that you run into while you're there, man, they're actually pretty good. They're good, salt of the earth kind of guys. You know what I mean? Like that was my biggest takeaway. And that was nice to see. Is that just how tight knit that community is, and how easy it is for you to just kind of make a new friend. I know just like working the booth, and some of the guys that I was able to meet at the booth, or some of the guys you introduced me to, it was like immediately, when I got home, it's like I got messages from him on social media like, hey man, great to meet you. And it wasn't like I met him and hung out with him for an evening and that was it. And it just like, it was like, now it's like, you're part of the tribe, you're part of that, the crew or whatever, which was really cool because, those kind of closed off events sometimes have a tendency to kind of, turn into high school and other industries, you know what I mean? Where it becomes super cliquey and stuff like that. And that just wasn't the sense I got during this show, which was refreshing and, and a nice thing to see. The other cool thing was, we'll get into talking about products, but was the Badlands Film Festival, man. Like that was just really cool to go see that, all those shorts and features that were in that competition. That was just a good time to be able to kind of view that and see everyone's hard work during the course of the year kind of come to fruition. And, they gave out some great prizes. And I thought it was nice, man, that, the guys and girls who won that feature one, like, the story that won was, I'll just kind of give a synopsis, was about a guy who was taking his mom on, I think it was a sheep hunt, if I'm not mistaken. Was it a sheep hunt? I don't remember. No.
She drew a very coveted tag in Colorado. She was going after a nanny.
That's right.
Goat. Yep.
And she had been diagnosed with cancer, and her goal was to always, kill one of these goats. And they went through this whole story, and it finally happened and came to fruition. And it was an awesome story. Like the whole, that her son took like the next however many years and just didn't hunt during those years just to take his mom on these hunts or whatever. And which was really, really nice. And the guys who won second place actually donated when they won, and it's not like they're not winning anything. It was like $1,000 or something like that. They donated that to this person toward, cancer research. And then whenever he won, his mom who has cancer, he won, and then he donated not only the money that the second place winner won, but also the money that he won toward cancer research as well. So it was a nice ending to a night, of just, of spending time of brotherhood together and stuff like that. And it was just a nice way to kind of, cap all that off. I don't know if you have anything to add about the films, because I know you have a much better film eye than I do. Mine's a novice one.
Well, you're spot on. So the film festival, it did exactly what it's supposed to do. I mean, it's supposed to inspire and showcase people's talents, and it's kind of a nice come together deal. And I love the Badlands Film Fest. And I'll be honest, man, like, days before the film festival, I was kind of at that point where I really enjoy the short films, but it's like, gosh, it takes so much work and so much effort to get your footage the way you want it, and to shoot the scenes that you need to shoot, and to make sure that the story comes together. I was starting to lose a little bit of that drive for that. And after the very first film, where the girl comes to full draw and she's 5 foot from that bull,
that was awesome.
That elk. At that moment right there, it was like the switch, lit a fire under my ass again, and I'm like, nope, remotivated. I'm ready to go again. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to capture the stories and to film, start working on my next film project. So, it did exactly what it's supposed to do. It's so cool. Like those scenes in movies. I don't know why. I've never been to a movie where this has happened, but they're in movies where it's a scene in a movie, and it's like a horror movie, and the bad guy comes out with a knife, and the victim doesn't see him yet, and everybody's like, turn around,
Yeah.
Well, that's what I like about the Badlands Film Festival, is every time the moment of truth happened, or when the arrow hit its mark or something, then that's when the crowd goes crazy and everybody's like, yeah.
Right.
So it's just a cool environment, man, to be in. Everybody appreciates everybody's work, and there were some great pieces. Some people did some killer work, got some great videography, and there were some really good stories. Obviously, like you mentioned, the gentleman whose mother, had been diagnosed with cancer, and that story, I mean, how do you beat that? You know, every single person on this planet has a mom. Yeah. So, when that piece, I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
Is is it okay to cry in front of everybody? You know, because I'm about ready to.
I know. It's like, hey, it's time to go to the bar. I need a drink.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I need to go to the restroom. I got something in my throat. I don't know what it is, but
exactly.
Yeah, so that was super cool.
Yeah, yep. and then of course Matt Singer's piece was baller. You know, he didn't win, of course, but like his message was killer. Was spot on. It was just, you know, he was talking about, you know, the hunting community coming together and, you know, and creating one voice. I'm going to just kind of paraphrase or shorten it, but creating one voice for those who oppose the sport and our lifestyle and stuff like that. So it was super powerful, as Jason's stuff always is, and you can of course see it on social media. He put it out, I think, yesterday or something like that. I saw it on social media, but I don't know if you have anything to add there. But I thought that was a super powerful piece.
I mean, let's face it, Matt Zinger's the man. You know, like it's you know, he's one of those guys in the industry that I had the opportunity to meet, and him and I became friends, and we've had a chance to hang out and you know, get to know over the years. And you know, it's neat meeting a guy that you look up to, you appreciate his work, his talents, and his strength, and then you meet him and then come to find out that his biggest talent is his passion for conservation and, you know, the hunting community. Mm-hmm. So that was super cool. And I mean, and he turned out to be a pretty decent dude too, you know, right. Jokingly, I say that. I mean, he's a great dude, but, so that's super cool. Anything he does, is always awesome. And then the more that you pay attention to Jason, then when you do get to watch his short films and hear his stories, you know how much it comes from the heart, which just adds to the meaning and tells the story even better.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously a hell of a hunter, right? And, you know, and a magnificent storyteller. And then if you couple that with just being a rad dude, it's like, you know, it's the triple threat. You know what I mean? It's a good guy to have representing all of us on a larger scale. So that's, you know, not a bad thing to have. I think one of my other favorite parts, man, was I think I had like 3 favorite parts of the entire week. One was the Canadian party. That was good. The Canadian party was interesting. You know, security might have been called to the presidential suite. I'm not sure, but we'll leave that as an open-ended question unanswered.
Right.
That was a good time. And then the Robin Hood guy that I met, that guy was, I don't know, he scared me a little bit, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was a little frightened. I was at the booth, and you went somewhere, and the rest of the crew went somewhere. And I was there it was one of the few times I think I was there by myself. And this dude comes up and he's like, thinks he's Robin Hood, and he's telling me that he sees this thing and he wants to have a tree house. And like, I don't even know what he's saying at that point, because I'm having an inner dialogue in my own head where I'm like talking myself through this. Is like, is this happening? Is this really happening? What are the words he's saying? Are they English? You know,
it's like snuck in somehow into the show.
Like it was funny because like after that, I saw him everywhere. Like anywhere I went, he was there. Like I went over to a booth to shoot a bow, and he was there shooting. But he was talking to the guy about like, I don't even know what. Like I just imagine it's about like spacecrafts and like third dimensions and stuff like that. Is what I think his conversations were. Like at least that's what I'm telling myself.
He was offering to trade squirrel pelts for porridge and cabbage and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, man. That guy was a trip. And then I think my third favorite part was Tyler and I went out to dinner, and that was actually really nice. Like he and I, you had a dinner that you had to go to, you had an event that you had to be at after the show the one night, and then we were all meeting up afterwards. And Tyler and I went to go grab a drink and grab some food, and he and I just had dinner and sat and talked for like 2 hours, and it was just like that was the first day I had met him, and this is just kind of like, I guess, really brings home kind of the feeling that I had from this event. Was here's a guy that I've never met before. I knew of him because he's on the Arrow Wild show, and we show up and we work the booth together that first day, and we talk deer hunting, of course, and bow hunting and whatever, and then we decide to go out to dinner, you know, that evening, you know, to wait to meet up with you afterwards, and we had like a 2-hour conversation like it was a guy I've known for 30 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, and that to me was like the epitome of the show, was that you had those types of conversations with guys that you ran into. And so I really enjoyed having dinner with him and getting to know him better, and, you know, consider him a friend now. So those were my 3 memorable moments from the show. How about you?
Well, you know, seeing, like I said, it's the one time a year. Some guys live in Nevada, somebody lives in Australia, somebody lives in, Texas or whatever, and it ends up being the one show a year that you get to talk to everybody. Myself on the Arrow Wild side of things, been fortunate, very, very fortunate to work with a lot of partners over the years that have contributed greatly, to what I've been able to do. And, you email, you see them on Facebook, and, you might text or something here or there, but you don't get to see them all the time. So it's like that one time a year that you get to see them face to face and thank them for, all their support and continued support, and you continue those relationships. So that's always the highlight of the ATA for me, is getting to see your community, getting to see your colleagues and peers and mentors and whatnot. But that's what I always look forward to the most. And then the new products, that's always super, super cool, because generally speaking, you're getting to see it before anybody else, before it's even in a magazine and whatnot. But everybody's talking about their seasons, what they got going on next year. I may have landed a Canadian moose hunt, that night at that Canadian party.
Yes, and I've already offered up my my camera skills for that free of charge. Yeah.
So there's there's some of that kind of stuff that happens. Badlands is always it ranks way up there in the top. But speaking of Tyler, like, that cat is like one of the nicest individuals you'll ever meet. And so when I had to go to that dinner party, I had no worries at all that you guys wouldn't have a good time and chit chat and have good conversation and stuff. So that was super cool. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's kind of how that works out. I did get to have a conversation with Adam Greentree from Australia, and that was a pretty funny conversation. We've never met personally, just we've had our stories told, exchanged. So that was kind of funny. And I'm a sucker for anybody with a good accent, especially if it's foreign.
Right.
Like, I could just sit and listen to people talk, and hearing him explain one of his hunts, with his Australian accent, it just makes it funny to boot. But
you're like, I don't know what you just said, but I liked it.
Yeah, I was like, it's funny though, I thought it was super. It was entertaining, whatever he said.
Right. That dude's kind of batshit crazy too, man. Like, the hunts he does.
Oh, dude, that guy's he's insane. Yeah. I mean, literally, he's insane. I mean, people are like, oh, we hiked in 5 miles today. He's like, yeah, I did that before 9 a.m. Yeah, and I self-filmed it all. So,
yeah, he did that whole elk hunt this year, where he did I don't remember where he started. It was Colorado through Montana and into Idaho. I don't even know where he started or where he ended up, but it was some ridiculous amount of mileage he put on, and he hunted the entire elk season, I want to say, or September, October, and part of November or something like that. It was almost 3 months. He just lived out of his pack, and he would come into town once every so often if he was hiking somewhere near where he could get into a town to get maybe a little bit of extra food to throw in his bag, because I mean, most of the time he was out of food and he was having to live off of the land, and I heard this story on he was on Joe Rogan, and he told the story, and then he got bluff charged not once but several times by a grizzly during his hunt. And I was like, dude, even the thought of possibility of being bluff charged would probably end my hunt. The fact that it happened.
Yeah, well, and that's just it. I mean, you see so many of these hunts, and let's face it, man, you and I, we, on a typical day outside of our Western hunts, that's probably the most manly thing that we did this year. But for the most part, I sleep on my Serta sleeper mattress, and I get up and I get dressed in the comfort of my home, and I go out and I climb up in a tree and I hunt whitetails, and then at the end of the day, I leave, I get back in my motorized vehicle that has a heater, and I drive home, and I crawl back in that Serta sleeper,
Yeah.
But when you go out and you run out of food, and you're like, I'm gonna have to live off the land and fight off grizzly bears in between.
Yeah. Exactly.
Dude, that's the stuff you read about,
Yeah.
Daniel Boone type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be tough to live in the outback of Australia, dude, because there's only 3 things that live there that won't kill you. You know what I mean? It's like every spider will
Yeah.
kill you, every snake will kill you, every insect will kill you. Like, it's just, it's like I don't know how anything lives there any longer, or how people even live there any longer.
Some tough codgers, man.
Yeah,
no doubt about that.
For sure. But there, a couple seconds ago, man, you mentioned what the show is really all about, which is the new products being launched.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about some of the new products first.
Yeah.
We'll start with the home team, right? So I know Wicked. Of course, I know Wicked has some new stuff coming out because I was speaking to it while I was there. So I know you're much more well educated on it than I am, though. So let's talk a little bit about what the new Wicked products that are hitting the floor.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. Back in the summer, I started working on the final designs for a couple of new products. One in particular, I had prototyped it started in February of 2014 is when I actually made the first one, which is what is now we are calling the Wicked Beast. So right now our handsaw is a folding handsaw with a 7-inch blade, and it's a straight blade. And we've had a lot of requests for people, have said, hey, I'd like to have a longer blade for a handsaw. So, we did the ultralight that has the removable head, but it's a makeshift handsaw. It's really not what it's designed for comfort to be, but you can make it work that way. So back in June or July, I broke out the old watercolors and started sketching up to scale what I call the Wicked Beast, and designed the handle up with the rubber overmold to kind of look like the teeth of a saw. Came up with the handle design, which is puts it more in line. It's a non-folding handsaw, but it's got an 11-inch curved blade. The other thing I wanted to do was I started playing around with some different tooth designs on the saw, and by kind of luck, came across a blade design. We were able to tweak it a little bit, and we said, you know what? If we're going to do this new blade, let's try it. Let's put it on the Wicked Beast. Like, let's make that the first saw offering with the new tooth pattern. And what it does is it's got larger openings, so it clears out more wood per cut. Instead of sawdust, it's saw chunks.
Right.
And because it's an aggressive blade, you got to have a little bit more meat on the handle. So we added a little weight to the grip of it. It's just kind of cutting assist is what that does, Right. It's not heavy where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even lift this saw. Like, I'm not saying that. We're talking ounces. We're not talking pounds. So just add a little bit of weight to it, but it's got a full aluminum handle. Sticking with that, Wicked's been known for not having plastic, parts. So we stuck with the aluminum handle, but like I said, it's a non-folding saw. This thing, it's a beast. It's just awesome. So that was the big unveil, and we also unveiled the Pro Blade, which
the Pro Blade's
it'll
cool,
be
man.
an optional accessory.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said the Pro Blade's super cool, man. Like, I love the Beast. The Pro Blade just is rad because I have an issue with, like, some of the places on my dad's property. There's all kinds of, like, vines and greenbrier that's growing up the side of this tree that I want to put a stand in the worst way. And this kind of is and I'll let you kind of explain it, but this is my solution.
Yes. Yeah. So going back to my background, even before the law enforcement stuff, my degree is actually in horticulture. So, I've cut a branch or two in my day.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, let's face it, like, if it's good enough for the arborist industry, for those guys to use it every day, and make a living off of it, then as hunters, we can definitely use this stuff a couple times a week through the trimming season. So we build everything to survive that industry, and then we know it'll hold up to the hunting side as well. So over-engineered, and I believe there's another company that uses that slogan, but that's kind of the way we've tried to do it. And the Pro Blade, we added what's called hook bills on the front and the back end. So imagine they're just kind of like stops. So when you're cutting 20 foot overhead, and you're cutting through a 4-inch branch, and you get halfway through it, and then the blade slips out of the cut. So now you're on the ground, you got this pole, and you're trying to find exactly where that cut was in the branch and get your blade back in that groove. And because, who wants to start from scratch and cut from 4 inches, when you only got 2 inches left to go?
Right.
So what these stops do is it allows it to stay on the blade, and it won't allow the blade to slip out of the cut. So you're more effective. You're being more time efficient, but also those blades are little sharp stops. So if you've got little things that you need to nip off close to those tiny little itty bitty branches that are next to the tree, it'll work for kind of nipping those. And if anything else, it'll crease them and get them out of your way. But in the southern market, if anybody's trimming palm trees, those things are perfect for the dead palm fronds. So it works really, really, really well for those as well. Not many people are tree stand hunting out of palm trees, but as far as landscape maintenance goes, it's clutch.
Right. Yeah. I used to have, when I lived in Florida, I had palm trees and those things. I hated trimming those. Those were the worst. Because once you trim them, they were sharp too, and you cut the shit out of yourself with them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're nasty. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to, I know that the Pro Blade is new, so that's one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to putting in my arsenal this year, especially for some of the stuff down at my dad's place, because like you're saying, I have some stuff that's growing up the side of the tree that I can use those stops that are sharper to kind of help me make some headway in clearing out some room to get a stand up in one of the trees I really want to be in. The other thing the other thing that we had at the booth that was really kind of a hot topic was the new Glacier Coolers. We had some new Glacier Coolers roll out. The one that I really dug, man, and all of them, the ones like the Ice Bucket, I think is what it's called, which is super rad, waterproof or water sealed, if I'm not mistaken. But the other one, I don't remember exactly what it was called, and I'm going to call it by the wrong name. You'll have to correct me here, but I like to refer to it as the body bag, because it is large enough that I think
the ice bag.
Yeah, it's large enough that I feel like I could probably stick a whole body into it and not have to even really quarter it. So let's talk about that a little bit, man. So I'll say one more thing before that. So those new products are super rad. The coolers are rad just in general. But if you look at the thing that really kind of is kick ass is that when you look at like by quart, right, whether it's a 30 quart or whatever, right, the price point for these coolers versus what you would pay for some competitor coolers of the same size and same quality, there's just no comparison. You know what I mean? Like whenever you start to stack them up, next to each other, there would be no real reason why you wouldn't want to use this cooler versus the competitors, especially when you start to look at the price point and the quality that you're getting. But I'll let you kind of explain, more about the coolers, because you know more about them than I do.
Well, so what the idea was with the Glacier Cooler line, we had the Ice Box and the Ice Box Junior, a 19 quart and a 35 quart. And they're soft side, they're flexible, but you unzip them and they have a huge, large mouth opening to be able to get your hands and things inside. That's one of the big things that everybody likes about them. Also, the 35 quart, when it's empty, it weighs like 2 pounds instead of 40 pounds,
right?
On some of the other competitors, premium coolers. Yeah. So you take a 40-pound cooler and you load it up with drinks and ice. Well, now you've got like an 80-pound cooler. Like, who's lifting that thing up overhead all the time? So that's one of those things. Like, we've listened to customers complain about the heavy rotomolded coolers and stuff. So, Glacier is based on the soft side, design. But we knew that we needed to round out the offerings. So we've got like the Ice Chip, which is a small cooler. It's got the built-in cup holders on the lid. It's still soft side, but that's going to be like your picnic cooler, your lunch cooler, the one that sits in the console area of your side-by-side, or it sits in the tractor when you're out doing some work. You want to take 3 or 4 drinks with you and 5 or 6 drinks with you, with some ice, and you don't need to lug around a big cooler. But then you go to the extreme side, and like you mentioned, the ice bag. I mean, the ice bag, there is no problem with taking a full, Canadian whitetail and quartering that joker up and throwing it in the ice bag,
100%,
and you can fit the whole thing inside there.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was super stoked about. Just because, as everyone listening knows, it's like I do a fair amount of, going away to hunt, whether it's, even if it's going back to like my family farm to hunt and stuff like that. I always have a trip to make. And so the question always becomes like, well, when I kill, not if I kill, I try not to say if, because I try to be positive. When I kill,
that's right. Positive thinking.
Exactly. How am I getting this Joker back? You know what I mean? Like how's that going to happen? So I'm usually taking like a couple kind of crappy coolers, and like they're of course hard coolers, and they have, they take up space in the back of my truck and this, that, the other. And so, especially whenever I'm doing those trips to like Ohio and stuff like that ice bag cooler is key, just because I can fit more crap in around it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't take up a ton of space, unnecessary space, to be able to haul a whole deer out. Like I don't want to take up the entire back of my truck to carry a deer. You know what I mean? So yeah, spot on. So, aside from that, man, like, there of course was, the other hot topic, I guess one of my favorite things that I went to see was that Garmin Zero site. That actually, I posted something about it on social media and got quite a rise out of people. Just, as you would expect, it's a technology piece. So there was a lot of people who were like cool with the technology. It's cool. It's interesting. It helps you kind of take, maybe be more ethical, because you can range right before you release an arrow. So exactly, and your pin is, exactly where it's supposed to be. And then there's, of course, like folks in well within their right to not dig it because it's, another technology piece that you're using, to hunt with, primitive equipment. So my thinking is like different strokes for different folks. If you like it, use it. If you don't. The price point is a little salty. It comes in at right around $1,000. So that's, I think is gonna probably keep a lot of bow hunters from using it, and, in my opinion, until the technology gets cheaper. But I think like the coolest use, did you get to go over and play with it at all or check it out?
Yeah, I got to see it just briefly. I wanted to get my hands on it. I wanted to see it in case anybody, asked any questions about it. But, and I was curious myself. I mean, and I'm right there. I mean, I think in the last couple of years, we've seen the rebirth of traditional archery. So I think there's already been a little bit of a division between traditional archery and one of my local buddies, he calls it, I shoot a bicycle bow.
Right.
But, I think the compound bows are getting so accurate, and this is just another piece. They're trying to add some technology with a rangefinder and a sight together. And that's cool. I'm all about innovation, and I'm all about technology improvements. I'm undecided on, where I'm at on it right now. As of right now, I'm sticking with my 5-pin and my rangefinder. $1,000 is steep, man. It's really, really steep. I mean, good Lord. We're talking mortgage payments, so it's kind of, that's a big thing. But I think you said it great. I mean, different strokes, different folks. I mean, I do think people are going to be very divided on that. They're going to like it or they're going to hate it. And I think part of the reason why they're going to hate it is 1, technology, 2, price.
Right. So I mean, for me, I'm a little bit of a technology nerd, so I, of course, was super interested in it, and just in full disclosure, it's like, I'm not going to use it. I don't really have a need for it. I also can't justify spending $1,000 on a site, even though I think it's super cool. You know what I mean? I think I would probably be able to justify it more, say, if I lived in Montana and I was doing a lot of big game hunting. And this is why, because I actually got to spend a little bit of time with the dude and talk to him and kind of understand how it operates a little bit. And so like the basic use of it would be just like a normal sight, only you're ranging right before you fire, and your rangefinder in your sight, like you said, John, is built into one thing. And that's one piece of it, right? I think the other piece of it that I think would be more applicable for me if I lived out west and was hunting western big game more often is that you can sync it, I think he said, with the Phoenix watch. And the benefit to that is like, so say, hunting whitetail, it's like I'm only shooting 30, maybe 40 yards the majority of the time. You get out west, it's like, yes, you might get a close shot, but there's a really good chance you might be shooting 60, 80, maybe 100 yards, depending on what your comfort zone is with distance, right? And stuff like that. So what's interesting about this is like, so say I'm taking that, say I'm, Cam Haynes, right? And I'm going to shoot 100 yards and I'm comfortable with that at an elk, right? I draw back, I take my last range right before I release my arrow, he's at 100 yards. I'm on him. I release the arrow, hits him, drops him, boom. I'm watching him. He runs up the side of this, up the side of this drainage, past this one big, tree, this marker I can kind of see, like to say, hey, it's this tree here is where where he went to go then, continue to track after, once I start that process. So, you walk up to the shot site, right? And if you're not sure because of that distance, because as you know, John, I mean, we talked about this in whitetail hunting. It's like when we talked with Neil about tracking, it's like once you release that arrow and you get out of the tree stand, the ground looks completely different because you have a new perspective.
Sure.
So where you thought something was really isn't where it's at, right? Same thing kind of happens when you're out west, because you might be shooting up over this thing. And it's like, yeah, it's 100 yards, but it's like that as you go, the landscape changes a little bit because maybe your elevation changes a little bit or whatever the case might be. It might be hard to find right where you made your shot. So what this thing does is it actually syncs with your watch, that it will give you the GPS coordinates of your last ranged position. So you can walk up to the exact spot where you took that shot to that animal for the impact site to be able to try to get on blood a little bit more effectively. And then the kicker is once you're there, if you can now still see that tree that he ran by or that boulder or whatever it is, you can now range that from that position. And so now okay, it's at that spot. That's the next place I need to go to because that's where I saw him run by. And you can start to have a little bit more of an effective, at least the beginning of your tracking process. And to me, that's where I really see the value in it. That's why for me, for whitetail, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I can usually figure out, the tracking situation pretty quickly.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
But when you're having to cover that much ground and your shot might cover that much ground, that's where I think, spending $1,000 to make sure that I can get on my animal effectively might be worth it. Not saying it 100% is, because there's plenty of guys out there that have been doing it a long time that haven't had to use it and didn't need it. You know what I mean? But if it makes your life a little easier and you do a lot of big game hunting, and that's the style of hunting you do, it might be worth it to you.
Well, and I think that goes back to something you and I have mentioned before. I mean, anything with a new innovative product, if it's going to increase my odds of recovering an animal or increase my odds and me being more consistent, whether it's a release or a broadhead or an arrow, whatever it may be, I mean, I'm all for it. When something gets a little bit beyond my pocketbook, then it's going to have to be a hard sell, for me to really consider it. The thing that I like is looking at the future is, that technology is out there. I mean, I remember, the first flat screen television. I'm like, oh man, I'll never be able to afford a $5,000 TV. Well, now you can get them on Black Friday at Walmart for $200.
Right.
So that's the cool thing, is to see that there is innovation, and it means that it's only going to get better and it's going to get perfected and the price is going to come down and stuff like that. So I'm a big proponent of just nonstop innovation. I mean, I think that's what, the United States businesses were built on, is, constant innovation and making improvements and stuff like that. So from that aspect, I'm all for it. And you're right. It does some really cool James Bond type stuff, but
it totally
as of right now, it's probably not for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So what was, I know, you were a busy dude the entire time we were there, but I'm just curious, and we didn't even actually talk about this while we were at the show, but I'm just curious if there was anything that you saw that was like the one standout product that you thought was just super rad. I know the site we just talked about was one of them, but was there anything else you kind of thought was super cool? Before we continue our conversation, let's talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. If you're tired of cheap-ass flimsy hand saws, or better yet, a pull saw that doesn't work for a damn, try Wicked Tree Gear, the toughest saws on earth. Order now by visiting wickedtreegear.com and use the promo code TRUTH to save 20% on your purchase and also receive free ground shipping. And now back to the show.
The Primos blind.
Yeah.
That was super cool. And anybody listening, if you're curious, just type in, probably new Primos hunting blind. It'll probably pop up. But imagine like a one-way mirror, when you're inside the blind, or I'm sorry, let me back up. If you're outside the blind looking at it, it just looks like camo fabric. You can't see what's on the inside. You get inside the blind, you can see crystal clear everything that is on the outside of you. It feels weird. because it almost feels like you're in a fishbowl.
Right.
And I could imagine, like, if I was hunting out of one of those things, my first initial thought would be like, oh my gosh, I'm out in the wide open, deer can see me, I can't move. But in reality, they can't see you. Mm-hmm. That's super cool, because that's always been one of my biggest complaints of hunting out of blinds, is that your vision is obstructed. You know, the beauty of a blind is it's dark and you can sit back in the shadows and things can't see you. But when I hunt out of blinds, I'm like, you know, I look like an idiot, because usually my face is like pressed up against like a window opening so I can see as much as I possibly can, you know?
Right.
So that was super, super cool. I would imagine that within the year, there will be other blind companies utilizing that technology in some degree, fashion, tiptoeing around the patents, you know, as well. So, but that was super neat. That was that got a lot of buzz, and a lot of people were talking about it. It seemed like the Garmin site and the Primos blind were probably the two biggest products that I heard people talking about at the show.
That was kind of my big takeaway too, was, you know, everyone had cool stuff, you know, it seemed like there was a lot more of, you know, products that were just what I'll say is evolved versus innovated, right? Where it was a product that they kind of like upped the ante on it, but it wasn't like, you know, a whole new concept. You know what I mean? Like these two things were two things that where it was like, here's something that's conceptually new that nobody's doing. You know, and rightly, you know, so they got a lot of fanfare. You know, all the bow manufacturers, of course, were there. I know you went to try to shoot the Prime but they didn't have a left-handed one for you to shoot. The new Primes. Those are your boys. And
the new Prime Logic got a lot of buzz. I actually got a call just a couple hours ago. A buddy of mine called me and said, he's like, I have a confession to make, and he doesn't shoot a Prime bow right now, but I think he's going to be making the switch. But he's like, dude, that new Logic is phenomenal, and I mean, I have shot one. I haven't been able to shoot one with my left hand to where I really can say, yes, this thing is absolutely better. But I have shot other bows right-handed, and I did shoot one right-handed, and yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just so smooth. I like the valley on it. The synergy technology and everything. I was really impressed.
Nice. Yeah, and that was everything that I heard at that booth too. I went over to shoot. This is always a good sign when you go over to shoot it, and there was a line, and I didn't get a chance to shoot it. So that was my experience there. I did shoot one bow while I was there. It was a company that I'd always was. You know, it's a small company. It's Obsession Bows. I don't. There's not a dealer close to me. It was, you know, one of the few bows that was in the running whenever I was looking at new bows a year ago. Never got to shoot one, finally got a chance to shoot one. And, you know, and this, it kind of falls in line with, you know, everyone has their preference. It's like, you know, guys like Primes, or they like Elites, or they like Matthews, or they like whatever, you know, everyone has like a feel that they want or whatever. And, you know, I will say, you know, the Obsession bow, being a guy who's shot Matthews, you know, me, that the Obsession bow was everything that I had read about as far as like draw cycle and stuff like that, especially for anybody. The one thing that is a little bit different, I think, is that, you know, these guys make a lot of speed bow type bows, you know what I mean? At least that's what I was shooting. They're for, you know, guys like me who have Tyrannosaurus Rex arms that aren't very big, that need the extra speed, but that was a nice shooting bow. Yeah, and nice guys too, you know, some Georgia guys, some Southern guys. But yeah, other than that, that was the only one that I got to shoot, and it was a nice feeling bow. Other than that, man, I was just taking in the sights and sounds, man. It was a long drive back. It was a good couple days. You know, I'm hoping to go next year. It was a good time. You know, probably could have taken better care of my health while I was there.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, that's the thing. You know, traveling with those shows, I mean, whatever nutrition you're used to or whatever workouts you're used to, there's a pretty good chance it's going to get derailed. You know, you're on your feet, a lot of concession food, and a lot of long nights. And I can tell you, not a single day that I was there did I hit the gym, and can't say that I had one healthy meal while I was there either. So
yeah, exactly. It was I ate a lot of pork. Is what I ate a lot of. You know, it was like every meal.
Yeah.
But cool, man. That was kind of like our ATA experience this year. Is there anything else that we're missing? I feel like that was kind of all the highlights from the trip.
Let's see. Oh, well, I'll give, obviously it was awesome having you in the booth. Wicked, Tecumani, and Glacier, partnering with the Truth from the Stand podcast.
Yeah.
One, I wanted to hang out with you for a few days, but I also wanted to get you in the booth so you could really learn about all three of the brands and kind of interact with some of the customers. So
yeah.
You kind of got to see that firsthand and get to your ATA show for the first time.
Yeah.
So it was awesome hanging out with you, which I knew it would be.
Yeah.
But I'll give a shameless plug. The Aerowild web show is on Carbon TV, and we've got episodes from 2017 that are on there. There's a couple of short films, and by the end of the month, we'll be starting season 2, which will all be exclusive episodes on Carbon TV. So if you guys don't mind, get a chance to check out the Aerowild TV show on Carbon TV.
Hell yeah, man! I've been checking those out on. Like I knew we were talking before we got on the podcast here. I've been watching and rewatching some of them and watching some of the ones I haven't had a chance to watch yet on my train rides to work, which has been pretty nice. And I appreciate you guys taking me out to the show, man. It was nice, just being in the booth and kind of interacting with the customers, and of course getting to hang out with you, because it's funny, people probably listen to the podcast and it's like, these guys go way back. It's like, John and I met, just like a year ago at the
a year ago
at the Harrisburg show, at the Great American Outdoor Show, and it struck up a relationship and a friendship from there. And then a few months later, it made sense to start working together on a podcast. And so we hadn't seen each other face to face, and since that, so this was like the first time that we really like broed out, hung out, had some coldies together, and spend some time just kind of hanging out, being buddies. So it was nice to spend some time with you, man. I'm looking forward to getting out to Iowa, though, one of these seasons, and doing some shed hunting, and then bothering you during whitetail season here, hopefully in the next 2 years. And
yeah, for sure, dude. It's no, man. It was a cool deal. Like I said, from the first time I talked to you, I was like, hey, here's a cool dude. He hunts that weird Pennsylvania area, but nonetheless, he's a cool guy. I won't hold that against him. But no, dude, that's the thing. Like you guys in that area, like I've got mad respect, because you guys have a lot of hunters per square mile. So I respect a lot of guys that are grinding Pennsylvania, Michigan, states like that where there's a ton of hunters, and I can only imagine how it is fighting for ground. I mean, the other day I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh man, I just picked up this lease and it's 160 acres and I only have to share it with one guy. And I'm like, gosh, I was like, I really wish I could get another 300 acre piece or something. And, then I talked to guys like yourself and other guys out in PA and Michigan, and they're like, I picked up a 40 acre piece. Like, I'm ready to go celebrate, like with Cristal,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I was I forget who I was talking to, and he was joking, kind of, where he said, he was like, there's a back 40 I hunt behind my house, that my family owns. He's like, but I hunt it with like 16 of my cousins or whatever.
Exactly.
Which is like 100% true. You know what I mean?
That's rough, man. A lot of hunting pressure. So I give a lot of respect for you guys, but no, I mean, I know that you bust your ass and you're doing things right. So, when the opportunity presented itself to start breaking into some podcasts and doing some work with, it was obviously a no-brainer.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of insider trading, a little bit of Martha Stewart action going on.
Right. Nice. But yeah, man, I'm super stoked to be working with Wicked and Glacier and Tecumani, and of course, love having you on the show. There's a brother bond there now that.
That's right.
That can't be broken. But before this thing gets all weird and we start crying like we did at the Badlands show, we should probably think about wrapping this up.
Turns into a big love fest.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get going here, 2 more things to mention. One is that if you are in the Las Vegas area, John will be at SHOT Show, right? Las Vegas, 23rd through the 26th of January. So be sure to, if you're in the area, to check him out there at the Tecumani / Wicked Tree Gear / Glacier Coolers booth. I will be at the Great American Outdoor Show on February 3rd and 4th with the guys from Exodus manning the booth there. And then, of course, you can visit, I believe, John, if I'm not mistaken, it's Lancaster Archery, right, is where the Wicked's going to be this year?
Yeah, I believe it's Lancaster. Lancaster will have some Wicked products.
Okay.
We're also looking at another one of our dealers that's going to have some Wicked products there as well. This year, Wicked will not be in the booth, and basically what it comes down to, Wicked's not in financial trouble. We'll go ahead and nip that rumor in the bud.
Right.
As Wicked is continuing to grow and we're expanding our dealerships, it just doesn't make sense for us to be there competing with our dealers. So
right.
We've always supported our dealers, and we want to continue to do that. And as we grow, it becomes even more of an emphasis that we want to support those guys and help them out. So Wicked is actually going to kind of take the year off of all the consumer shows. So we won't be selling direct, but they will be. So if you need anything Wicked-related saws, replacement blades, pole saws, and that kind of stuff, don't let that discourage you. Go to the Harrisburg show. It's fantastic. Take some vitamin C.
Yeah.
So
and sanitizer.
The Harrisburg crud.
Exactly.
But yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll be at the booth there February 3rd with the guys from Exodus, February 3rd and 4th, and then you can check out one of the Wicked dealers, Lancaster Archery most likely, or you can even stop by, ask me. I'm sure I'll know where you can pick up something if that's what you're looking to do. So until next time, y'all, I think we're going to go ahead and get on out of here. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. It is time to shut this thing down. We would like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, and if it's not too much to ask, please head over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast. And of course, we'd be very appreciative if you would also leave us a 5-star rating. That would be awesome. Of course, we need to give a big shout out and thank you to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible: Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Tecumani Seed, and Glacier Coolers. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
November's on my heels, makes me proud, makes me steal. I could show you through the door, I ain't welcome anymore. And long time coming, if it all, it takes a special knowing to color for damaged heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers, but